So my question is around working with like psychological impediments to, fully embracing a dharmic life, basically. Because before I came, this really strong realization that you can't. It's total commitment is basically needed, right? So unlike what I was talking about liberal democracy and how you can choose between different things, you don't really need to commit to something. But it's very clear that's not the case, right? And then this demands, your full commitment, and you have to be willing to put it all on the line, basically. So, which, is something I really feel strongly pulled to do. But then there's the psychological tendencies from doubts, etc., that come up. So we would really appreciate your insights around that if you could share something.
Well, as in most cases, when something is well acknowledged, as in the case of your inquiry, a question, and honestly put forth, that contains answer, that contains solution. The solution is already there, and the only solution is awareness. So it in certain resonance with what we spoke yesterday, that we need to have this simultaneous understanding, or understanding which simultaneously embraces, on one hand, our ability to make commitment. Because at times we don't make commitment because of secretly knowing we will not be able to keep that commitment. So that there is this already a act formed. And interestingly enough, if we observe and if we are really honest with ourselves, or if it's revealed to us somehow, or pointed out, then we can recognize that that is indeed a pattern to not to commit to anything. Because there's no such thing as being very, very committed in one area and non-committal in another area. No, there is this, unless we have split personality disorder, in most of us, there is this continuity in a way. And that continuity here, of course, extends to the beneficial, positive, as well as that what can sabotage our living to the full capacity, to the fullness. This non-committal thing is a very peculiar thing. When we don't want to go for something because we somehow feel that we will fail. This is a distinctive sign of weakness. It needs to be acknowledged and eradicated mercilessly. It needs to be worked on mercilessly, because this is what makes us, at the end, unless there is a severe psychological deterioration. What is severe psychological deterioration? That's the psychology when we justify doing downright wrong things. When we find justice to the wrongdoing, this is a deterioration. So when we, on the other hand, rise to that, what even feels like a certain degree of extending beyond what we feel we are capable of, as long as we have that intention that we will, immediately translates into tremendous strength, because it's in the nature of consciousness. If you tell yourself, I can, right? I can. There is expansion of prana within the capability I can. We were going back to the Seven Samurais, right? Remember that little time we had together in that tiny little room, right, in England? So it felt like kind of seven of us guys, right? And I don't know who brought that in, but I felt like giving this as an example, Just imagine the bandits are around the corner. We're here. We're going to be dead anyway. So let's do our duty. Let's do it. So this, I can do it. And then how they were able to convince the villages that they can do it is another extraordinary thing. So the strength of our character really is already knowing our weaknesses. Being blind to our weaknesses, sometimes even like, oh, I don't want to see this weakness because I'm so strong. Already a weakness. So this is the malleability. And this works in the same way, just as spiritual truth cannot be grabbed, cannot be just held, cannot be pocketed. Because by nature, it's all there is. It's out of some kind of mental poverty that we want to take spiritual truth as our own. In the same way here, that also works here, that what we set to commit, and if we see that there will be temptations, there will be fallings, shortcomings, that's the strength of the character. But the intent is set that, yes, but I will nevertheless withstand because I am capable, because it is within me. It's already there. And there is this also humility that whenever I fail, it's not on the account of my weakness. It's on the account, and this is very, very, have to be understood, on the account of that fallibility of the human condition. But that human condition is not who I am. I'm made of the Platonic values, not of the human condition. Even if I was drilled from my birth that I'm all this human condition, conditionings. No, this is a superficial layer. It is that rust. It is that muck. That's what tarnished the mirror. That's what needs to be polished. Polished, really. Sometimes when that mirror hasn't been polished, soft cloth is not enough. It needs something which will remove the rust. So this all comes from understanding, so that all this indoctrination of what the human condition here represents, all these traits are just really a superficial covering, layering. That's not who I am. And we're not even talking about now ultimately who I am, because this is also a cop-out and a spiritual bypassing. This is why having this leap, I'm awareness and everything in the field of my awareness, one is exempt from any psychological work. One is exempt from any self-examination. Okay, you see how? It's an invitation for a bypass. And many take that, thinking it's a shortcut, but it's not. It's a self-delusion. And sooner or later, particularly if the real awakening taking place, because when the real awakening is taking place, we will be thrusted to do the work. It will present to us, it will be like, you avoided me, right? Now I'm going to teach you a lesson, my dear. And I will teach you in such a painful way, by dearest and nearest to you, will deliver that, what you thought you like, arrivederci, I speak in Spanish now, kind of, oh, Rio de Janeiro, like No, it's going to be the paradise lost then and then. So that is all that is required. And you are right to point out that it requires all, because if it's not, it will not work. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. This is why there's no trespassers in this territory. No one can trespass territory of spiritual commitment. No one. Why? Because it only belongs to those who mean it already. No one is going to be there uplifted suddenly and miraculously delivered. And all this talks about the grace is blind. I also did that, answering questions, In California, you have to be careful what you say, because, Californians like to hear what they like to hear. That's grace. Yes, grace is blind. Yeah, it's blind. No, grace like those who work their butts off. That's what grace really. No, it's in scriptures. It's a scriptural expositions. So, and of course, also knowing that you don't have culture behind you. You don't have culture behind you. So you also this awareness of the necessity for sangha, necessity for spiritual family, for satsang, and above all else, ability to stand alone. Ability to stand alone no matter what. Because when there is no culturally shared consensus with regard to this, what we speak, then the whole culture is like a very strong pool, a tide or whatever. It's like a current. The obviousness of that, what obviously is seen through, right? Seen through the slogans, seen through the pretenses, manufactured consensus, seen through all the technique to inform a good citizen. It's kind of not that difficult, but to rise above the level of collective vibrations is not easy. So now we're talking about the subtle aspect. To be completely to have clarity. And I've seen spiritual teachers even, not talking about sadhakas, spiritual teachers fall prey, right? Non-duality teachers, Harish yesterday mentioned, to the BS completely. They actually do not even realize that what they become in support of, it's part of the collectively generated consensus. It just shows you how unable they are to have utterly independent stand, irrespective of how maybe eloquent they are in their deliveries. See? But we're talking about something else here. We're talking about not being able to be pulled down by anything that is collectively is there. Begin to feel awkward, begin to feel heavy. What is it? Because we're not allowed. We have to always feel elevated, always elated, elevated. Not to bypass emotions. We will talk about it. One can remain in melancholy. One can remain in any of the ultramarine colors, in kinds of blue. It does not mean being depressed. It's savoring, appreciating that quality. But we need to test and immediately recognize when are we being pulled down. Something pulls us down. No, we can't afford that. And the only way is here to be able to stand alone as consciousness, independent. And once you start feeling, tapping into that enormous reservoir, because it's enormous, because it's bottomless, then nothing can really destroy you, nothing can distract you either. So, really, that's pretty much otherwise straightforward.